Hello YouTube, Jerry Kirkpatrick here, and if you are thinking about building your own sheet metal brake, I think you might find quite a few tips and not necessarily tricks, but things that you might want to consider when you're building or designing your sheet metal brake. But before we get into looking at my particular brake, let me give you a little backstory on how and why I had to make this particular brake. Back in 1995, a friend of mine, Glenn Ferguson, was driving a upright sprint car. And an upright car means that the roll cage is somewhat just glued on top of the regular chassis of the sprint car. And he wanted me to design and build him a down tube car. So he let me take a ride in his car so I could feel what the chassis was doing at 80 or 90 miles an hour when you go into a corner and you set the car, that right rear tire. You want the chassis to be as stiff as possible to keep that left front tire down to get the drive, especially coming off of the turn. When you start to accelerate, all of the weight transfers to that right rear tire, and if your chassis is flexing, then the spring rate of all four corners, except for the left front, which it's not doing anything anyway. The only reason for the left front tire on a sprint car or a midget is so it doesn't fall over in the pits. So if your chassis is flexing, when you start driving off of the corner and the chassis is flexing, you're not getting the drive off of both wheels. You want that left rear to come down and give you some drive also. So he let me drive his car just to see what kind of torsional stresses he was talking about. So I designed and built him two cars, and then I built one for myself. And in building these cars, the one portion that I didn't have the right tool to make was the cowl, which is right in front of the driver. It separates the engine compartment from the driver compartment. And what I had designed was 20 inches tall. Therefore, I needed a 20-inch brake. And that's where this particular brake came about. So with that said, let me take my brake, put it over on the table, and we'll walk through some of the modifications that I've made over the years and some of the things that you should consider greatly as you're building your own brake. So probably one of the very most important things when you're designing your brake is to make sure that the center of your pivot point is right on the center of where the bending leaf meets the clamping leaf down here. Next would be to have a positive stop for your clamping handle. So as it comes down, it stops just as the center point of your stationary link and the moving link here comes past the center of this pivot bolt here. If you watch this, you'll see everything is pivoting around here, and this, the center of this, will come just forward of this pivot point here. And you can hear it snap into place. And you need an adjustable link here to accommodate different thicknesses of material. When you have a thin material, you'll have to bring the clamping leaf down a little bit by adjusting this. If you put some heavier material in, 16 gauge or so, then you're going to have to let this up. Just by a small amount, I can't even let that go over. Just by loosening this up, I can adjust this top leaf to accommodate any thickness of material. And the way I made these is I have a right hand and a left hand heim joint, and then I made this little link with a left hand and right hand nut welded to a short piece of tubing. And I've got plenty of these things because I've been racing sprint cars and midgets forever. I guess my first win was back in 1959. So anyhow, every time you crash, you always change your heim joints. For the clamping leaf, I did basically the same thing. I welded a right hand half 20 bolt to my top leaf. I have a heim joint, which you can see back here on this fixed arm that comes up, and then made an adjuster here. So I can move this clamping leaf fore and aft to make up for thickness of material. And if I want to add a piece to create a larger radius on the bend itself. An easy way to keep track of what degree of bend that you're making, you can use a pendulum type protractor, put it right on your bending leaf, and watch it as you come up. If you want to make a 45, you've got it right there. If you want to make a 90, you can bring it up just a little bit past and control your spring back. Another thing you might consider is incorporating a stop of some type. I made this one just for 45 degree, and if I move to this hole here, I can go to 90 degrees. And you want it adjustable for different types of material, meaning aluminum or steel, and different thicknesses of material. You have the ability to dial in how much overbend you get so it springs back to the correct angle of bend that you're after. So I know that I didn't get into materials used for building the brake itself, but you will know what material that you're going to be bending or want to bend, and the size of the bender. The best advice I can give you in that regard is look at as many benders as you can, good ones, and see what they have chosen to make the strongest pieces. I showed you how I arrived at different linkages and such. You can look at different benders, see how they did the same thing, and incorporate that into the bender that you are going to make. So with that, if you have any questions, if you want to get into specific pieces or how they're assembled, leave them down in the description below and I'll get back with you. So thanks for watching. If you found this informative, please give me a thumbs up. I do like coffee. See you later.